Hello, everyone. Get comfortable. I know there's only a few of us. It's a morning panel. It is what it is, but we're going to bring the energy. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time in this little workshop.
We're caffeinated. We don't know about you guys.
How many of us are caffeinated? Are we ready to go?
Yes.
All right, we love it. I love the energy. To start, we'll give it a little bit for people to trickle in, but we did. So this is welcome to Would You Like to Save Our Progress? This is going to be a workshop where we talk about saving our progress in real life and organizing around voting and voting actions through the power of video games. So we're going to talk about that, but to start, we just want some warm-up questions. What games are you playing at the moment? Anybody? Go ahead.
Yeah.
I just finished Pikmin 4.
Nice.
Oh, fun.
It's cute.
Considering voting, because it's so colonialism coded. I felt kind of bad doing most of the things I was doing, but it's like a fun game. But I don't stand by what I did in that game.
Yeah, when we were prepping for this, we were talking about Zelda, where in the latest game, you go around and you bribe people with mushrooms to get their votes.
Oh yeah, that does happen. It does happen in Hateno
Tears of the
Village.
Kingdom,
Yeah.
Like, vote for me, here's a mushroom.
Anyone else got some good games they're playing lately?
Or favorite games of all time.
We just did tabletop. We did
Ooh, fun.
Betrayal at House on the Hill. So
Neat.
that was interesting.
I'm not as familiar with tabletop. I'm going to expose myself. Games, they stress me out.
It was stressful. Basically, you're in a haunted house and somebody becomes the traitor and they're try to kill you.
Drama.
It is very dramatic. So we had fun though.
I just got introduced to a card game, and it's called, so sorry, this is going to show a little bit, because I was in the Bible Belt with my family, and there's a card game called Is the Bible Funny? And it's Cards Against Humanity, but so you've got white cards, like, why did I call out for work today? And all the black cards are out of context Bible verses. So it's I smell like a rotten apple or something like that, and then has Deuteronomy 4:6, and it's an actual Bible verse, but just out of context.
Did you come up, is the Bible funny?
Out of context it is. The first time out of context Bible is funny.
Anybody else?
Kingdom
we'll get
Hearts
started.
fans?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely.
Yay, Kingdom Hearts.
Okay, well, we can get started. It's going to be a small crowd. Is still fun to. It'll be a different energy, but we're gonna have fun. We're gonna make it fun. It's all good. So, like I said, welcome to Would You Like to Save Our Progress? Let's talk about who we are for a second. We've been chatting at you. My name is Delia. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the ops director here with Fandom Forward. And I'm actually from a gaming family. My whole family has played video games. I've played video games since I was a literal child. My first console was the Super Nintendo. No, it was the NES. It was the NES, and then the Super Nintendo. Big Nintendo family. So I just played a lot of video games, but I guess my main ones are probably Animal Crossing, Zelda, very Nintendo coded up here. But I like all sorts. Undertale, Stardew Valley. I don't think I listed Undertale, but Undertale as well. Go ahead.
My name's MJ. My pronouns are she, her. My favorite games are Kingdom Hearts, 813, if you know, you know. Skyrim, Animal Crossing, and lately I've been revisiting Farmville. No
Interesting.
shame.
I didn't know Farmville was still around. I saw you put that there. And
It's on your cell phone, and I was just I feel productive. It's nice feeling productive. I don't feel productive in work. I feel productive here. But yeah, video games does a lot for fulfilling things that you don't have in your real life. But anyway.
Absolutely.
Fandom Forward.
Right. So we're part of Fandom Forward. If you don't know, we are a nonprofit that our mission is to turn fans into heroes. So we rally around fan and pop culture to galvanize people to create change in their own communities. Sometimes it's really big change, but a lot of times it's small, meaningful actions that we focus on, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
I will add, we've been going since 2005, and we are very much all over the world. So we have a very international staff. It is very US heavy, but there's definitely actions and ways to engage across the world through online platforms or through different local chapters as well.
So tell your friends. We'll get to that in a little while, but definitely tell your friends. So we're here today. This is part of our bigger campaign for the year called Save Our Progress. Basically, this is a training for video game fans who want to get involved in the 2024 election on a deeper level. Now, this doesn't mean you got to go like knocking door to door or whatever, unless that's your bag. If that's your bag, by all means, go for it. But I like activism to be fun, and that doesn't sound fun to me. So that's what we're here to do. We're trying to mobilize video game fans to get out the vote and protect voting rights. Hopefully, we hope that there's a virtual conference for video game fans to develop their leadership skills and organize voting actions, but we are also starting to do trainings and workshops like this around IRL, a concept that seems kind of foreign coming out of the pandemic, but IRL is fun, it's good. Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I think we're about to dive into some like specific tactics of how we do it. No, we're almost there.
Schedule.
Yeah.
So
Let's do schedule.
the schedule is going to be probably more loose than what this is just because we have a smaller group, which is fun. We can do more of back and forth. I think we can work together as a group more. It'll be fun. So this is going to alter slightly, but not too much. So we're kind of following a video game kind of structure. So we're going to give you a prologue. We're going to give you the background. We're going to give you the lore, if you will. Then we're going to give you a tutorial about how to plan an action. So hopefully this inspires you as we talk to use your own whatever fandom space you occupy, whatever game it is. I don't know if you can galvanize the Pikmin fandom if they have such a fandom, but whatever space you're in, we're hoping that it'll inspire you to use it to capitalize on and create small actions in your community, your day-to-day life, even if that community is online, if it's IRL, you can do both. And then we're going to have a debrief and Q&A, but also since we're such a small group, I invite y'all, if y'all have questions as we go, to go ahead and ask them, because we will have the space for that in the time. And then next is level 1. We're actually going to do a little worksheet about how to plan your own action. So as we're going, be brainstorming. There'll be time for it. We may, since there's not like enough for a group, we may just be one big group. Maybe we can do it together. We'll see how we feel when we get there. So don't have to make a decision yet. And then we'll finish with the debrief, Q&A, all that jazz. We're gonna try and be mindful of time, but I think we got it.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Cool. So to start, what is fan activism, or more so, right? Yes. What is fan activism? Show of hands. Has anybody heard the term fan activism before?
We're all familiar with activism, though. Yes. Yes. Okay. So now it's just a blended concept.
Okay, cool. Well, to start, we want to talk about what fandom is. So a lot of people think that fandom is like a bunch of consumerism. Capitalism definitely thinks fandom is just consumerism. They sell us Funko Pops, merch, art, video games, spin-off series, all of that jazz. And trust me, I also eat it up. So like it is that, but more than that, fandom is a feeling. And so this picture really depicts, I think, what fandom feels like. You know, just people living in the moment, not a screen in sight, whatever, et cetera, et cetera.
I was looking at that. I was like, it could be the Otakon rave.
Yeah, no, there's definitely screens in sight.
Miku concert, yeah.
But the idea is that fandom is being in community. So, like, once you're engaged in community, that's being in fandom and taking part of fandom rather than just kind of casually fanning. That's how I see it. So community is the key thing. That's going to be the difference between buying tickets to go to, what is that place called? I don't go to Star Wars. The Disney park. Is it just Star Wars World in Disney?
Yeah.
I don't know. Galaxy's Edge. Thank you. Yeah. The difference between just somebody casually going to Galaxy's Edge or like the Harry Potter world at Universal is the taking part in community part of it all. Oops, I keep forgetting I have to do the slides. Sorry.
What does fandom community look like? So what are some examples? So it can be like creating a fan work, so fan fiction or fan art, or creating like an anime music video, or composing or remixing music. It can be doing that and sharing it. It can be creating and spending time on online spaces or in real life spaces like here. It can be creating making friends and geeking out over your favorite fandoms. Whenever there's a new episode, or ranting whenever they kill off your favorite character, is this idea of community. It's this idea of like interacting with other people around fandom. So even if you are just like lurking on AO3 or in subreddits, any lurkers? guilty lurkers. It's still participating because hits do count. If you've ever been like a social media manager, you know hits count. And so it's still a way of kind of putting a little vote and engaging in a community and creating and generating strength behind that community. So most importantly, whenever people become part of a fandom, it's tying in, it's resonating with them, and they're seeing a reflection of themselves and their values in the show, and that's kind of also what kind of pulls and cohesion around the community as well. So they get committed to the story, what it represents, and how it relates to their real lives.
The jams have started.
The jams have started. Cue our little soundtrack music.
So obviously, we're having this conversation, and we like to do activism from a place of wanting to change the world and being very optimistic, but like we can't ignore the fact that right now the world feels like it's on fire. It has for the last few years. There's definitely been a shift. We've all felt it. I think it feels like when you're in a video game and you're really trying to beat this boss, or like it could be like a mini boss, and they just keep one-shotting you right when you think you're like, oh, I'm almost got it. I've almost got it.
Almost done.
You just get a little closer, and then it takes you back to the start. And that's kind of what the world feels like right now. And, you know, our challenges are similar in video games to that of, like, a hero, but we don't have, like, a nice little hero's journey. Like, we don't know if there's going to be a happily ever after. There's really no telling, but it's up to us to make that happen.
Especially if the game came out of Japan.
Yeah, there's really no telling, truly no telling.
It's going to feel good at the end.
So, yeah, fandom is a way to take what you're feeling and to put it into action. So we're going to talk about what fan activism is now that we have a grasp on fandom. Again, if you have questions as we go, please let us know.
So fan activism is the act of engaging in activism through storytelling and fandom by drawing parallels between popular media and real-world social issues. If you want the academic definition, because this is like there's a whole realm of study. Anybody familiar with Henry Jenkins? No, okay.
But I'm on the panel.
Yeah, I know. So like if you're a nerd about fandom, he's like fandom god. He is based out of California. It's like my bucket list dream to like meet him and talk to him over coffee. But anyway, he's got a definition for fan activism, and his is, fan activism refers to the forms of civic engagement and political participation that emerge from within a fan culture itself, often in response to the shared interest of the fans, often conducted through the infrastructure of existing fan practices and relationships, often framed through the metaphors drawn from popular and participatory culture. I'm going to say that again a little bit slower because it's just a lot of words, but you can kind of get the ingredients. So fan activism refers to forms of civic engagement and political participation that emerge from within a fan culture itself, often in response to shared interest of fans, often conducted through infrastructure of existing fan practices and relationships, and often framed through metaphors drawn from popular and participatory culture. For us at Fandom Forward, we think like this also like there's an element of social justice that's missing from this definition, but we'll get there.
We will get there.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah. A fan activist is someone who's channeling their love of fandom into good work, into some sort of action, like we're doing today. A fan organizer is someone who organizes those efforts, who gathers people. So we at Fandom Forward are fan organizers. So there's a little bit of different types of elements going on.
A brief history of this. Oh, yes,
yeah,
please.
I was just curious, like, do you think there's an inherent activism in headcanoning because you're, like, queering the media or bringing representation, like disability representation or race representation is something that's lacking in it?
Yes.
Do you think that doesn't take that step forward because you're not taking an active step forward?
Well, I mean, if you're publishing it,
Okay.
you're definitely signal boosting that dialogue that's missing in popular culture. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so the question, if you didn't hear, I don't know if y'all can hear that in the back, basically was, do we think it's activism to headcanon works? Which I have a demonstrative. This backpack
Show and tell.
is a Harry Potter backpack. I don't mess with Harry Potter anymore like that, but I do think there's a lot of people in that space who are taking that media, that intellectual property, and twisting it and turning it into their own, as a radical direct action against J.K. Rowling. I think that's like a perfect example. For those who don't know, Fandom Forward used to be known as the Harry Potter Alliance. We rebranded. So I think both can be radical, distancing yourself from media that you think is harmful, but also saying, you know what, I don't have to play by your rules. I'm going to make this what heals my community and serves my community, and you can't take that from me. So yes, I do think that can be very radical, especially if you're engaging with it as a community. So like you're rallying around, like using Harry Potter for as an example again, you're not only creating fan works, fan art, fan fiction, whatever the case is, you're also engaging in community and spreading that and spreading the word of like, we're going to queer this media or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Cool, great question.
Keep them coming.
Yeah, keep them coming. In fact, speaking of making fan works, a brief history of fan activism, it all goes back, as most fandom lore does, to Star Trek. So in the Star Trek fandom, people don't know that's where fanzines were invented. This is where fan fiction started happening. Like Star Trek.
Slash started.
Yeah, where Slash started.
How Slash got its name.
Yeah. So Star Trek is the genesis of much of fandom culture, to include fan activism. We first see it when they're trying to, not first, but one of the first times we see it is them, working against the cancellation of the show, which that can definitely count as action, I would say, and activism. But we also know, even within the Star Trek fandom, but beyond it, the way it has grown, that fan activism is more than that. It's a place to have political discussions, social discussions, cultural discussions, and sometimes debates. Like that can happen from the foundations of fandom. No? Next.
Oh, this is where I continue.
Yes.
So, fandoms have been seen, and we're starting to be more and more recognized as powerful training ground for future activists and for community organizers. If you get a whole bunch of people together for a Save Our Sailors campaign in the 1990s to keep the show from being canceled, then you're doing some groundbreaking grassroots organizing. So we're already seeing that kind of evolve. Fans are already doing this work around community organizing in their own context, between, I don't know.
Our Flag Means Death.
Which one?
Our Flag Means Death. Does anybody watch that? No? The pirate, gay pirate show? Yeah. It unfortunately just got canceled, so people are actually doing movements to try and bring it back, which, yes, that's just bringing back a show, but also that show is radical in the representation it brings to queer folk, black and brown folk. So that is also a social justice statement to say, no, this show deserves to exist. And fans are grassroots organizing to try and get some other streamer to pick up that show.
I mean, there's just so many parallels with the original Star Trek.
Yeah, no, actually, when you were talking about it.
Because of the whole depiction of Neota in the original Star Trek, and all the dialogue that happened around that. Anyway, okay, so yes, so Save Our Show campaigns, we're already kind of doing this. It's laying groundwork for and building up your skills to angle into more social justice and activist goals. So other forms of early fan activism, including groups of queer fans campaigning to get gay or lesbian characters added to the Star Trek cast, efforts to resist censorship or book bans, efforts to defend participatory practices like fan sites against threats from major corporations that hold copyright. So there's long-standing legal battles of people getting together to do legal battles to defend transformative fan fiction and things like that. So it's there. I think once you start scratching the surface, then you're like, oh wow, there's all this rich history that just isn't out in the popular consciousness. So what does fan activism look like in practice?
Yeah, so we're only going to go over a few of these, but there's lots of examples. There's more than this, so we tried to pull examples that are relevant to video gaming and the video gaming community. But fan activism, we've done work. There are other great organizations that you can follow and find that have done great work. But just to name a few, for instance, we have Adele, who, if you see the first corner, the BLM meets Animal Crossing, really jamming out there.
I know, I told you, we got our soundtrack.
Sorry, the ADHD. Hello, come take a seat. So Adele, during 2020, everybody was in quarantine. Animal Crossing had just come out. Adele created a memorial on their island for George Floyd and Breonna Taylor with flowers and all of this stuff. I don't know if that island's still around. I don't know if any of y'all play Animal Crossing, but the idea is you can visit other people's islands. So she made this memorial, and people came virtually to pay their respects. Another example is the sit-in for, we won't go too deep into it, but there were hundreds of players that participated in an in-game protest against Activism Blizzard, if y'all heard of their lawsuit about really an understatement to say their frat boy culture at the company. Players within an Activism Blizzard game did a sit-in to say, hey, this is not cool, this is not all right, which is very cool. And thirdly, again, we're just going over a few of these really quickly just to keep to time. Overwatch players turned the character of Mei into a symbol of democracy in Hong Kong protests, because initially a professional player by the name of Blitzchung, I'm not going to lie, I don't go to Overwatch, but I do know that they're a professional player that got suspended from the game for being pro-Hong Kong. So those are just a few examples. There's many more. You can also follow Fandom Forward. We talk about it all of the time. But fandom activism is something that's happening all around you. And I would argue every fandom, it eventually leads when you're participating in critical fandom. You start seeing things through the lens of the fandom you're in and thinking critically about the world around you. I think it just kind of naturally flows into being, even if not fully into activism, to a social justice orientation.
Yeah, I think as fans mature, like we start out squee. We start out really excited. And then as we mature and as other kind of different things happen, like we start saying, oh, well, what about this? And oh, what about that? And I think it's a way to, I think critical fandom is expressing your love, even though you're being critical.
Absolutely.
So, at Fandom Forward, we've been doing this for a few years. And there are five things we wish people would know about how to level up their fan activism to make sure that they're coming to tapping into all the great energy and all the great potential that's there. A major pillar, thank you. A major pillar of fan activism is capturing the public imagination and redirecting it towards social good. But that only works if the public is currently engaging and involved with both the social good element and the fandom that you're in. So if you want to do a Pokemon Go campaign, the ideal time would have been 2016, not right now. We all still love Pokemon Go, but it's definitely tapered off in the amount of people that are playing and the amount of momentum that's behind it. Even so, popularity doesn't always mean that you're going to have a good campaign. You need a strong connection between the source material and the kind of goal or objective that you're doing. So going back to Overwatch, the Overwatch character Mei was turned into a symbol of democracy and used in the Hong Kong protests. Part of this is because Mei in Overwatch lore comes from Xi'an in China, and one of her taglines is, "Our world is worth fighting for." So there was always a strong connection between this Mei character and the political cause that the fans were fighting for in the Hong Kong protest.
Also, a thing to consider is the relationship to creators. Like, we know, we said it up top, like, we exist under capitalism, and honestly, all of these properties are being given to us by conglomerates who have their own goals in giving us the things that they give us, of course. And, you know, sometimes the relationship can be fraught, or maybe complicated is a better word, like we were talking about with Blizzard activism. Like, a lot of bad stuff came out about that company, but people still love their games and still are able to find enjoyment out of them. The way I think of it is like we are essentially trying to navigate the world where the choice isn't that easy as it is presented in video games. Like if you think of Stardew Valley, I don't know if y'all play Stardew Valley, but one of the choices you have to make is, do you, you know, side with Joja Mart, which is like the conglomerate Joja company incorporated or whatever, or you can build up the community center and be in the community and fight for good is kind of the idea. And I feel like that's a choice we're always having to make, and that's the line we're always having to walk when we're trying to engage, but it's not as clear cut as that, right? So that's something you should acknowledge in your activism. Like, yeah, it's not good what this company did or what this creator did, what this author did. That's lots of side eye to Harry Potter. We are always ready for it. But yeah, just making sure you acknowledge it and engage with it. I think you can engage with it and still love the thing.
Yeah. So, number 4 is remixing and reimagining. And this is one of the huge points of kind of like how to get yourself into fan activism and how to maximize it, is to understand and totally internalize that all of our stories like Final Fantasy and Zelda and Pokemon are all being remixed and retold all the time. And they, as each time they're told and reiterated, it's becoming something new from what the original creators imagined. This is nothing new. This has been going on for millennia. So you can think about how many times the King Arthur stories have been retold, or you can think about all the different times that like ancient mythologies are being retold or being reused.
Or even more recently, like a game like Undertale. Like that game has had such longevity because of its fans and the community that's built around it, remixing, reimagining. If you've ever seen Sans on Tumblr, if you know, you know. The other thing is that fan activism is grassroots. We kind of talked about it before, but it's being in the community and starting there. Like, we're not going to take down Nintendo or Blizzard, even if you might want to, or maybe you don't, but that's not the goal. That's usually not the end goal. You do see big actions happen sometimes, but those are far more rare. And that's okay, because the change that you can make in your community is the change you're going to feel the most. Like similarly, going back to the Stardew Valley example, you don't go just barge into Joja Incorporated and like take down Joja. That's not the goal of the game. The goal of the game is to build up the community, your farm, and create change that way. Unless you do the Joja Mart like quest, but if you don't, the goal is to build up where you are and make things better for your community, which really is what fandom is all about.
So, what other wake up? We've been like spewing a whole lot of information at you. Pop quiz time, or not. Just to see, are there other examples, like as we've been talking, that you're thinking about, like what that fan activism could be that you've seen? Examples of fan activism in your own fandoms or in your video games or things like that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be video game fandom. It could be other fandoms if you've seen it around.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Black in the back,
mask.
and then we'll come to you.
Sorry, me?
Yes.
So you mentioned Harry Potter. So I don't know if you ever heard of Harry and the Potters.
Yep.
The band that they go around and they perform as Harry Potter. They started the Harry Potter Alliance years ago to push like different activism issues. And since J.K. Rowling has gone even like they had to push even farther for like activism issues, and I think they also do like literacy issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like for me, like they're the biggest example I can think of like a fandom that's kind of reclaimed from the creator and like still active to this day.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're actually with Fandom Forward. We said that up top, but I know some people weren't here. But we rebranded from the Harry Potter Alliance, partly, yes, to, distance ourselves from that creator and the harm that she was doing. When we have a lot of trans, non-binary, queer followers and people in our community.
And in our leadership.
Yeah, in our leadership, like at top down, we have a lot of people that she was doing harm to directly. But even if not, we have to stick up for what's right and live our values, which we were always promoting as the Harry Potter Alliance. And now we do stuff like Book Defenders, where we fight against banned books. We're doing this year, Save Our Progress, trying to mobilize people to do voting rights. We've done things with climate change. We've done, empowering young girls. Like, we've done a lot of good work, and it was inspired, yes, originally by Harry Potter. But you can critique the thing, love the thing, and know when it's time to move on. If that is true.
Have you been to a Harry and the Potters concert?
I have not.
Me neither.
Oh my gosh!
I know. But you've been to LeakyCon.
Yeah.
Don't they usually do something?
Yeah, they
every
do.
year at LeakyCon? You were sleeping through the.
I sure was.
Yep. Brown hat.
Thank you. So I think that a lot of fan activism examples I think of are actually very personal examples.
Go for it. If you feel like sharing, go for it.
I think it's interesting, but I think research can be really interesting. Way of doing activism. I've been really interested in research on fandom and research media analysis.
Mhm.
Last semester I did a paper where I did like original research where I analyzed 13 different like Western animated TV shows,
Okay.
a couple episodes from each show, and like some of them were canonly non-monogamous and some of them weren't.
Mhm.
But I read them all as non-monogamous and
Mhm.
then compared how like children, like animated media for adults versus children portrays non-monogamy and how canon versus non-canon media portrays non-monogamy. And like, I didn't have it published or anything. I really just shared it with like my classmates and my professor and a couple other people who came to like our presentation. But I think it got people thinking, like even if it was only a small handful of people thinking about the way that you can read media differently
Yeah.
and like queer things differently. And then I know we've talked about banned books a little bit, but my grandma like loves banned books. Like she, in the way where she looks at the books and doesn't think they should be banned, but she like.
Okay, she doesn't love banning books.
She loves reading and promoting banned books.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
So like she's not a part of any group or anything, but she has a lot of children and grandchildren. And
Yeah.
it's like every chance she gets, she's handing me books that have been banned.
Mhm.
And she's like buying, like one of her great grandchildren is black, and she's like going out of her way to find books that have black characters in it to give them. And
Like all the Toni Morrison.
sending like her grandchildren like books that have been banned like across the country. And, like there's just one woman who likes to read, but like she's introducing so many children to books that aren't gonna be in their libraries anymore.
I love that example because
Yeah.
that is exactly what fan activism is. Like at the end of the day, when we say it's grassroots, we're talking about like quite literally in your community. Like, yes, you can get up on a panel stage. Yes, you can go to conventions. Yes, you can try and like galvanize the masses through like becoming an influencer or whatever the case may be. But like, I find the most change is in your circles, in your community. Like you said, your grandmother sending banned books to all the kids that she knows, it sounds like. That makes a difference in people's lives. So no small action is too small is the way I think of it.
I think, it's going that old adage about like think globally, act locally. Like you don't know. So yes, that's, it's trite, but you don't know what the impact is going to be down the lines. It's throwing the stone and having the ripples go out. So we don't know if one of the books that she sends to one of the children is going to have a profound effect on their life. And then they're going to go off in a whole new area of social justice, of advocating and being a good ally because they read that book, or kind of going and pushing the envelope further in their communities because they read that book. So I think it is, it's so easy to be like, oh, we're not living up to this grand vision, but we are making a difference. And I think we're going to get to it a little bit later about celebrating your wins. But I think it's not something to dismiss. I also want to say it's not something to dismiss research, because
Yes, going
research
back to
and
that, yeah.
having that research done is also a lot of what people can go back and push the envelope for. There was a really great documentary on Netflix about This Changes Everything. And it was about women being depicted in film and women filmmakers. And they were saying, we're noticing a lack of female, of women, in film and in these things. And it wasn't until they did the research and showed the research that the corporations kind of woke up. I would say research is definitely a huge part of fan activism and of changing the way things are done and kind of gets that legitimacy.
There's a concept, I'd have to look it up, but it's like the ecosystem of change, in that in movements for change, like everybody has a different role. I would have to remember and look up the name of the person who created it, but you can look up ecosystem of change and it'll pull up the chart. And it's very interesting. You can find where you fit in, because we need people, yes, on the ground. We need people protesting. We need people up here to create workshops. We need people who are going to go to their town halls and yell at their city council. We need all different types of people, and I think research is a big part of that. People who are looking into the histories and doing that part. Did anybody have any other examples they wanted to share before we move it along?
We're still waking up.
Great, no, it's fine. So now we're going to get into the tutorial. The tutorial about how to plan fan activism action. Now that we understand what fan activism is, the power, the things that it can look like, the power that it has. So oh, we're going to use this. We're using this as an example. So what we're doing now is Save Our Progress. Again, we talked about it. It's a training for video game fans who want to get involved in the 2024 election on a deeper level, want to mobilize video game fans, et cetera, et cetera. We covered that up top. So we're going to go through first, let's talk about
Let's talk about voting.
Yeah, let's talk about voting. Go ahead.
So this is another, like, you thought you were going to be able to go back to sleep, but no. Why is voting important, guys and gals and non-binary pals? Why is voting important? Feel free to be political.
Because it's how you have your voice in your community. It is the only way you have a say sometimes.
They said that voting is the only way you have a say sometimes, for those who didn't hear, which is very true. We all get one vote, and they're supposed to be equal. This is not that panel to debate like what that means, but on paper they are supposed to be equal, so it's important to use that vote. Anybody else?
Yes. Braids.
Huh?
Braids.
So this is something that I read recently about somebody like mentioning like, oh, I don't vote because it doesn't really make any change, so I do things locally in my community instead and everything, and it just made me think about like, but it also, like, voting is what stops, I probably shouldn't say this, but voting is what stops, like, further negative change, too. Like, sure, not every time we vote is going to push us in the direction we want to go, but with the way things are happening in the world lately, with all these rights being reversed and stuff like that, like, we have to show up at the poll in order to let people know, like, no, we're voting for these people because we don't want these things to keep being reversed and stuff. So
Essentially, you want to save our progress. Go ahead,
Yes.
Green Lanyard.
Just building off of that, I would say I think of my vote as like canceling out the bad vote.
Ooh, yes. Okay.
I like
So,
that.
like, every time my dad is on the opposite side of the political spectrum from me,
Mm-hmm.
so every time he votes, I'm like, well, I have to vote. So I cancel that vote. If I don't, then his vote has more power.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have to keep up, so
That's
that's how I think of it.
That's definitely how I look at it, because I know if I don't vote, someone else will. And that threat is enough to be like, okay, I need to get out and I need to take the time to go vote. Even in my local elections, state election, well, I literally live in DC, so we don't have a state election, but local elections.
I'll also say, I think in our culture, we're always very polarized. And even if like what you vote for doesn't win, the margin does make a difference. And they do pay attention to that. So I think it's very easy to be like, oh, it didn't win anyway. But if it didn't win by like just a small amount, then it's different. Yes, brown hat.
I've also, like, for a long time I didn't really see the value in voting independent, because even if I, like, preferred the independent candidate, like, they aren't going to win because of how our system
Right.
works.
Mm-hmm.
But I had one friend say, like, I'm voting for this independent because if they get over X percentage of votes, they get more funding next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, even if these people aren't winning, if they're getting that funding, it, in theory, is at least spreading information
Mhm.
and not making change in other ways, because ideally, if you're a politician, you're doing more than just spending all your money on your election. So, like, it's unfortunate when it feels like your vote isn't doing that much, or like it's just pushing money around, but sometimes that money could go somewhere good.
Mhm.
And so it's free for you to vote, but you might end up giving a cause money, like, indirectly.
For
And
sure.
also is giving them influence.
Mhm.
Because if there's a certain showing for them, then the people in the main two parties are going to want to coalition build with them, right?
Mhm.
So there's some power to that as well.
Absolutely. All right, the tutorial we promised. We were going to talk about maps, but we'll talk about it here. So basically, planning an action can seem a bit daunting. So, like in a video game, you have a map. It's going to give you a map. We're going to give you a map to plan actions and work within your community. We're going to teach you how to build one today. So what is it that you need to figure out?
Oh, you're way ahead of me.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's okay.
She's just flying. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about maps. How do you get from point A to point B? All right. So, topic. So, we're crafting this map, and the first point on your map is the topic. So, you need to identify a subject that you want to be involved in. So, it needs to be something more than like just make the world a better place or social justice. You need to be on something, get it to something a little bit tighter like climate change or racial justice or gender equality. And you might be like, but MJ, what about intersectionality? We'll get there. But for right now, just pick one kind of subject for you to kind of hone in on.
Next, we need to get more specific. So we just said we want you to pick a topic, but that could be very broad. Like if you pick climate change, there are so many facets that go into climate change and areas you can act that it's very, very hard to create change that way.
Water or air or plastics or fossil fuels. Oh my, all the things.
The alternative
All the things, all at once.
Avatar, the Airbender,
Oh my
the last Airbender, yeah.
I did not go for that, but yes, thank you.
So like basically take our previous 3 examples. If you wanted to use like climate change or racial justice or gender equity, you might choose to focus on flood prevention, holding police accountable, girls' access to education. I think of it like in Zelda, if any of y'all played Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild. Like you don't just run into Hyrule Castle and beat Calamity Ganon or Ganondorf. Some people do, but they're gluttons for punishment. Typically, you want to start small. You start where you are, and you slowly build up from there before you eventually do the final boss. That's true of any game. And so you also want to specify where you want to focus. So if you're working on flood prevention in the entire United States, that is also still too ambitious. So maybe you're going to work on flood prevention in your city or your town or even in your neighborhood. I used to live in a place in Texas that was a suburb of a larger city, and it was really nice to know that I could affect change within my quote-unquote city pretty easily because we were such a small community. The city is called a city, but very barely. So think in those scopes, like within a few blocks of you, maybe your local library needs funding, things like that. Like we're thinking locally to us personally.
So to make that a little bit more concrete, as we kind of go through these like milestones of these different points on the map, we're also going to talk about how we're using that in our current campaign, which is our Save Our Progress campaign. So when we started, we're like, okay, our topic is going to be voting and democracy. And then, okay, so we need to narrow that down. So what are our problems that we want to address? So our problems are rolling back of rights and reproductive rights and fundamental rights, rolling back trans rights, access to books, and low youth voter turnout. So these are the problems that we identified that we wanted to start addressing with our campaign. Next, connection.
Yes, I do realize we're going to pick it up a little bit, but if you'll have questions as we go, please let us know. Did I change it? Yes, I did. Okay. So next you're going to want to find the connection. So you need to make this a true fan activism campaign. Like if you're just trying to get flood prevention in your neighborhood, like that's just a regular campaign. So how do we make it into a fan campaign? You have to make a connection with a particular fandom or pop cultural phenomenon. Like we did a climate change action and we focused on Avatar: The Last Airbender. I'm a big fan. Big fan. I know that's not video games, but like that's where my head lives most of the time. And it did really well because we used
The Water Kingdom.
Yes, but also like we had a pin with Katara as the painted lady. Like it was a whole thing, and I think a lot of people resonated with it a lot. Avatar: The Last Airbender has kind of had a resurgence around the time that we did it because it came back on Netflix, all of that stuff. So
that was the campaign on water rights, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the
water
campaign.
rights and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Exactly.
Parallels.
So you want to pick a phenomenon or a particular piece of pop culture that is relevant and timely, ideally. And this works really well because fandom forms because people connect to these stories. They're a reflection of their values in some way. So the connection is even stronger than if you were to, again, just say like, hey, don't you want our like neighborhood to stop flooding? Like we need to talk to city council about this, or whatever the case may be.
So goals. So we've got great, grandiose dreams. We've got our topic. We've got our big problems. Now we want to be more and more specific about what we're going to do. So what is our goal? These are like doable objectives, and these are concrete. So it's a way to have something that is more measurable, and you can have multiple objectives. You can have multiple goals, multiple objectives along the way to one goal. But for this time right now, we're going to just kind of be narrowing down on one objective, supporting one goal, supporting one problem, supporting one topic, just because that'll make it a little bit easier than not getting too much into the weeds. So how do you do a good objective?
Well, we first have this example. We'll go through it quickly. If you have questions, please let us know. I know we want to actually make our own. So we decided to use video game. We knew we wanted to do, get young people out to vote and like somehow create a campaign around that. But in conversations, kind of like Braids said, we realized that, the whole point is we don't want to go backwards. So we kind of came up with the concept of saving our progress. On top of that, video games have a lot of narrative surrounding like the little guy and values surrounding that. Like it's the little guy little Link, he's a little guy and he's going to go fight Calamity Ganon. That matched with our goal, again, to mobilize thousands of young people to vote in the 2024 presidential election so that youth voter turnout is higher than it ever was before.
So youth voter turnout, and where are a lot of youth people at? Video games.
Yes.
So that blends really well.
Also, you should do it genuinely. Like, we are also video game fans. So it's not, I should have added that, but it's not enough just to be like, oh, I want to, that fits my goals, but do you actually play that video game? Do you actually watch that movie? Do you actually, whatever the case may be?
You're actually part of that community.
So also make sure you yourself have a personal connection to the work that you're using.
Otherwise, you're going to run out of gas real quickly and probably do it wrong.
Yes.
Excellent. So objectives. So we're kind of getting all of this fire. We're building all of this fire around the connection, around all these different, about the topic. And so now we want to put this goal into concrete objectives. All these goals can be really unrealistic, but now we're kind of getting something into something more measurable, and so we can kind of see our progress. So you can have solving climate change as a goal, but passing a local law prohibiting the use of disposable garbage bags is an objective. So you can have different objectives supporting one goal, but like I said, we're going to be focusing kind of on one, let's talk about objectives and their characteristics, Delia.
Yeah, we recommend that you make your goals or objectives, SMARTY, which most people are familiar with the
SMART goals.
SMART goals, yeah.
Okay, a couple.
We're familiar with SMART goals, so we won't go over that. It's on the slide. But we also want our objectives to be inclusive and equitable, meaning we want them to be inclusive, centering those most impacted by the issue, and have them participate meaningfully. So like, don't be Hermione, who's like, I'm gonna create spew and free the house elves, but I don't really even talk to house elves. Like, don't do that.
The house elves don't want to be free.
Yeah,
at the
like
beginning,
that's also just a messy allegory, but we'll save it. Also, we want them to be equitable. We want them to address systemic injustice, inequity, oppression. So like, if you're doing like, oh, we have a lot of houseless people, we want to, help them somehow. Make sure it's equitable to the people that you're serving, and it's meeting the systemic injustice that has created these, or at least acknowledges the systemic injustice that has created these material conditions.
So
do you want me to? Oh, you have it. Okay, you can see it. Okay.
So we wanted. So whenever you have your objective and you start defining it, this is just SMART goals came out of like corporate culture, but it works, so everybody's using it. Mm-hmm. So you want it to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable. So for ours, we're saying in November 2023, we want to train 10 to 50 young BIPOC and queer video game fans about organizing pro-voter initiatives within their specific fandoms. So creating that kind of objective is satisfying all those specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable qualifiers.
And lastly, not lastly, we want to create a tactic. So a tactic is an individual action that moves you towards your objective. So basically think if winning the Mushroom Cup in Mario Kart is your goal, and your objective is to beat your brother for once, then maybe your tactic is going to be using blue shells at an opportune moment. So we're whittling down the when. You could also think of it as like when, where, why, how, all of that. So you're going to brainstorm some individual actions, and we'll talk about examples of actions that move you towards that objective. So like, again, going back to the climate change goal, passing a local law prohibiting the use of disposable garbage bags is an objective, and then creating and circulating a petition to get that law on local ballots might be a tactic. Again, it may be even more local. Maybe it'll be like your ward. We have wards in DC, or your district in your city if you live in a bigger city, but it may be your entire town if you come from a small town.
So tactics. So be thinking about like who's on your team. Is this your family? Is this your Discord group? Are these your classmates in your university class? It's good to kind of think about who's on your team. It's also good to think about like who's in the orbit, like who might be a good person to partner with, who might not be in the core family of it. You think about what are your resources, what are like kind of materials or money, or people do you have access? Do you have someone who is a librarian and say, hey, I want to organize something at the library, and then they can help equip you and give you space to do that. So what kind of resources do you have that you can use to take steps towards solving the problem? And then finally also, what are the obstacles? So like what roadblocks are in your way? This could be the big one all of us nonprofits always face is funding. But it can also be kind of like community buy-in. Is there a large media campaign that's going contrary to what you're doing? Lack of education, or like people just don't know about it.
Lack of research.
There's a lot of different types of roadblocks that are out there, but being aware of them so you can address them is a good tactic to move forward. So specifically, what actions and activities are you going to do with your team? What resources are you going to be using? And accounting for the obstacles. How are you going to move forward to solve the problem and strengthen your movement or your campaign?
So our example of our tactic, we organized a prototype training on Gather.
It was really cute.
It was really cute. If you've never used Gather, it's a super cute like virtual like conference program, but it's like pixel art. It's so cute. We connected with the voting org to provide effective advice and direction for voting actions, and we plan to host a workshop panel here at MAGFest. So we're doing it live. Y'all are some of the first people to get this training, so that's really exciting.
You're the beta testers. We already had the alpha testers.
Yes.
I love Reflect. Every space I'm in, I was like, can we debrief? Can we talk about how to do this better next time? And people get a little sick of it, but like I keep on doing it. So evaluation tools. What tools can you use to evaluate your success? So back whenever you created your Smarty objective, part of it was measurable. So like, how are we doing on our measurings, on our measurements of achieving this? What is going well? What surprised us? What didn't work out well? So taking that time to kind of debrief. We're actually doing a debrief about this panel right after.
We sure are.
At Nando's, Peri Peri. And then, do you want to talk about celebrating?
Yeah, don't forget to celebrate. So even if it's a small action, like make sure you get your people together and celebrate your wins, small or big. You can do that with a pizza party or a game night. We encourage after your reflection, make sure you're finding the positives and highlighting those so that when you come together to celebrate, you can really lean into that and celebrate the people who also did it with you.
Yeah. I also want to say, feel free to celebrate throughout the entire thing. Don't wait till the end. You can also debrief throughout the entire thing. But, especially if you're doing a campaign or something that's, several weeks long, I was really involved with NaNoWriMo, and so you're trying to get to this end of writing 50,000 words in the month of November, and that's great whenever you get there, but celebrate when you hit your first 5,000, celebrate when you've hit your first 10,000, and celebrate along the ways, because that'll help keep momentum both for yourself as an organizer, but also for the people that are participating alongside with you.
Mm-hmm. I'm learning Korean, and it's same with language learning, and it's very difficult if you don't celebrate, because when you're doing a hard thing, it's hard. So you have to take moments to be Am I that conversational yet? No, but look at all this stuff I know that I didn't know before. It's the same thing, same concept.
Yeah. I know how to say I've sat at the table. Like, that's good.
Yeah, exactly. I could say I ate rice. This is great.
So for our current example of Save Our Progress campaign, our reflections, the tools that we're using are like surveys. We've been doing interviews, debrief meetings, and we will have a game night at the end of this to kind of celebrate the campaign. And we're also in sharing successes in Fandom Forward staff and community. We have like a weekly newsletter that we all write into, and we share our successes there as well.
And it's important to note that as you proceed to each location on the map, as you're going through all these steps, planning your action, like things can happen. Different routes may open up, different options may become available. After examining the connection between real world issues and fandom narratives, you might move on to goal, or you might need to go back and revisit topic for items you missed earlier. Don't hesitate to revisit steps and adjust your plans as you go along, because the space of activism and the space of doing these works is ever changing.
All right, we just threw a whole bunch of information at you.
We did.
Do you have questions?
About how to plan an action, maybe questions about actions we planned in the past. If nothing,
Not yet. Okay, that's
great.
right.
We love
Yay.
it. So we did want to. Is this me? I don't even know. Yes. Okay. Before we hand over the proverbial controller, we want to tell you what it might look like to do fan activism for a voting action. So you might, do voter registration at a local card or video game store. You may do like voting social, for example, or you may cosplay at the polls. I think that's so fun. Like I literally want to do that myself. I think that's super duper fun. You might do a ballot party or study hour. You may game stream with friends and discuss upcoming elections. I do like watching streamers on election night, so that's an option as well. The scale of an action might also differ based on each person's experience and capacity. So someone might invite 2 to 3 friends to go vote and then grab a bite together, for the example of voting social. Someone else might organize their Discord to vote on the same day and time and arrange a post-vote tournament. So it's also going to be about what you have access to. So this is the part that's going to be fun. We're literally not literally.
We haven't been having fun? I think we've been having
No,
fun.
I've been having fun. I'm just saying we are going to hand the proverbial controller over. So what we've done is we would like for y'all to, we were going to go in groups, but obviously it is just the group of us.
The few and the mighty. We're the underdogs.
Yes. So we have worksheets. We were going to give you worksheets to potentially plan your own action. You can also get it through a QR code. We have a physical one as well.
Yeah, we just want to, how about we give out the worksheets? Or
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
want
we
to
can give them
gather people? How do we want to do this?
We can just give them out, I think. Does that sound cool? Would you like to just have the worksheets individually?
For your phone, you can scan it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either or. Did you grab pencils as well? Okay.
Did.
Okay, cool. Each worksheet has a template of this campaign planning process we've just talked through. We're going to have about maybe 25 minutes to work on it. But
We'll check in.
Yeah,
Check in after like the first 10, I think.
yeah. So even if you don't get through it, you can take it home and keep working on it. But also if you have questions, we'll be around to answer them. But take your time to brainstorm, fill out the worksheet. Again, we'll do 20 to 30 minutes, but we'll check in.
So here's a question. Do you guys, are there out there, we've been kind of quiet, but are there people who want to come together and do it as a group? Or would you rather kind of do it separately? So group? Okay, so maybe let's have the 3 of us or so come together right around here, and we'll group it. And then you guys can do individual if you like? Okay, excellent.
So I'm going to put a little timer on. I will check in for time in a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, 11:30.
Good.
If you have questions, raise your hand and we'll come to you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, we were overtime, but I'm like, I think
It's not going to be, yeah.
I'll put the joint email list up.
Thank you for helping with the mic. I like project, but I don't always remember that the mic needs to be pointed towards my mouth.
Yeah.
My mouth. Anything else? No.
No, we're
We do share.
Yeah. I'm very excited about Leah doesn't feel hungry. What? I'm very excited about Leah doesn't feel hungry. I didn't consider we would just be sitting here. Can you hand me one?
Yeah, sorry. Would you like a pencil?
Sure.
What's your favorite color? Yeah. I'm active in my church. Thank you for taking the picture. Whenever we were talking about like social justice and stuff, and we started talking, you can tell like there's a lot of lawyers because people are like appropriations, like where's the money going? And so like her saying like research, I'm like yes, research. What was the other one she mentioned? Oh, the grandmother giving out books.
Yeah, no, I really love that. That's a perfect example because it actually reminded me, I'm like, I guess that's true. Like, my family is Native American, but very detached, like, from, like, many people of color, families of color, like, the parents, like, try to protect them from being othered. Yeah. So, I've always been curious. I'm like, we should do more. We should, and so I started a book club with my family, and we read books by, like, Cherokee authors. And, like, we've had so many cool conversations, and, like, some of my family that's not been as open-minded have been like, oh, so, like, we do experience racism. Oh, okay, so we, like, you know. And I hadn't thought of that as, like, social justice. I was just like, no, people, we're going to get to our roots. We're doing a book club. But it is kind of a little bit social justice. It does create change. The power of books, man.
I also like the idea of like, what's it called? When you get a portrait, oh my gosh, watch party. Like doing a watch party, or watch party series, and then having discussions after them.
Actually, that's a great idea.
I'm kind of like, since we started talking about like Twitch, I'm kind of curious because it's like, there's so many narrative elements in gameplay. Like, what does it mean to go and play a game without using weapons? Like, so there's that. Like, you can do all these different things, but there's also a social element to that, right? You know, and there's always like the negative examples of like, what do you do if you like have a super high kill count and things like that. So, but there are people that are doing kind of like the inverse. It's interesting to see because we don't really talk about. I don't know.
Oh, I
haven't been in that sphere, but go ahead.
I was gonna, like, what you were saying was very, like, that's kind of like the premise of Undertale, and now I'm thinking about it, Undertale has a huge fandom, and it's interesting, like, the whole story. Have you played Undertale?
No, I have no idea about it. So
okay, are you going to play it? I don't want to, like,
spoil.
Okay.
So what platform is it?
It's PC.
Okay. Yeah, no. Spoil away, I'm not gonna play it.
Pretty sure it's not on Switch. Actually, I don't know. It might be. Don't take my word for it.
Always like sometimes there's where. Did you see? Sorry, like it blew my mind. There's now like the online PC platform that everybody uses. Steam. There's like a Steam handheld thing now. There's hardware for Steam games.
Oh, that could be game
I
changing.
didn't even know that. Like it was, and I saw it, and I was like, "What is that?" I was like, I know that's a Switch. What is that?" It's like, "What's a Steam?" Anyway, continue. Undertale. Yes.
Oh, Undertale. I can't believe, like, I'm like, we should talk about this as like a concept because Undertale, the whole, I'm leaving it on because I don't know how to get this off. Look, it's an analog, but it's a bad analog clock. Like, I can't tell the time. Like, I can barely see that. So I keep having to leave it on, trying to see the time. But the whole concept is you can do different, like it has different outcomes depending on how you play. And like the best way to play it with the most story is if you do like a pacifist route where you don't kill anything throughout the game. And it like really has this rich story, but you can also do a genocide route where you kill everything. But like there's a lot of conversation and it has like a lot to say and like there's a narrative there that it's talking about. And I'm like, yo, that's actually really powerful. I can't believe we haven't done anything with that in Fandom Forward actually. Because yeah, it's a very powerful conversation like to have like maybe people play. It's a long game though, but like somehow I don't know how we do an action around it, but there's something there. Like merch, like through Save Our Progress. I don't know. I'd have to think on it, but like that's the whole point of Undertale is like exploring like how we play video games, how we consume video games, what it means to kill a video game, and like all of this psychological stuff that's very cool. And it's also just like a heartwarming little story.
Yeah, I remember, I think the last time I was at MAGFest, we were talking about like how like, it's just like part of the conceit, like that you go in and steal things. Like in Zelda, you go and you smash bots.
Yeah, exactly.
You steal gold and go to the people's house and smash
I'm like,
bots.
thanks for the rupee. I'll go into it. I'm like, thanks for your rupees, and then leave.
Ooh, a green one, yes. No, it's not green,
Red
it's
one.
red.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was like going for blue, I was like, it's not blue, it's red.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, there's a lot there. There's a book, I was like, I bought books leading up to this con. Did I read them? No. But I bought them. There's a whole book on woke gaming.
Oh, interesting.
That talks about, it's like, of course it's like a nonfiction book, so it's got like all these different essays, but it's talking about like critical engagement of video games and things like that.
Interesting. What is the book by? Do you know?
You can just Google woke gaming, and that's the title of the book. And it's got 2 editors, but I don't know who they are. There it
Oh
is.
yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah. I was like, it sounds like something that's like gamer adjacent, but okay, cool. Digital challenges, depression, social justice. Oh my gosh, we should do a reading group.
Yeah, I've got like a whole list of books I need to submit to book club. Like, they keep on asking for suggestions. I'm like, I've got everything. I just need to like sit down and do it.
What are the odds of this is? Is there an ebook version? Probably not.
No, I think there is. I think there's a Kindle.
I'm gonna look at it, look for it on the library, at the library then. Because I pretty much only do ebooks these days. I don't know. I'm a new person. Who is she? Okay.
I moved from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom, so now I've got like an office and like bookshelves.
Oh, I want someone. I like.
I've got empty bookshelves. I'm like, that does not mean I should fill them.
No, notify me. Okay, well, notify me.
Oh, that there isn't one?
No.
Oh.
I mean, there probably is, but none of my libraries
Oh,
have
I
it.
see. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not a hoopla or anything like that.
Yeah, that's fine. What was I gonna say? You said something about books. Don't remember.
Gaming, Undertale,
ADHD, just ADHD. That just yeeted whatever the thought was.
we've got 55 seconds left in our first 10 minutes. I heard that one. Did it feel good?
It did. Goodness. Why did I suddenly get tired? It's probably because I'm hungry. My body is like, if you don't give me food.
Did you not eat breakfast?
No, I did, but I got up pretty early. I just couldn't sleep anymore. So it's been a minute. And I did think about bringing Cliff Bar, but I'm like, I'll make it. Why do I do that? I do that all the time. I'm always like,
Did you have protein this morning?
a little, not much.
They'll do it. Those carbs don't last.
I do not. But I always trick myself. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I definitely. I was like, I'll make scrambled eggs. I don't have time for scrambled eggs. Oh, hard-boiled eggs. Perfect.
Oh yeah.
All right, do we want to circle it and ask people how they're doing?
Sure.
See who we get one more time.
I'm very lucky to have
you guys reading the book? Are you familiar with Reality is Broken by Jane McGonigal?
Okay. Jane McGonigal. I mean, obviously McGonigal sounds, but I mean Jane McGonigal sounds familiar. I know. Yeah. I was thinking, is this a jam space? I'm like, it can be if we try.
So, okay, in the book, it's from like, so it's talking about like how video games make the world a better place. And she talks about Rock Band. Do you remember Rock
Oh,
Band?
yeah,
And do you
yeah.
remember how like people would go out to bars and play in Rock Band? And like the bars would have Rock Band setups.
I was more of a Guitar Hero girly myself, but
Yeah.
yes, I remember that whole era. Oh, it was so fun.
My like house in college, like there was a couple that did the guitar. I was a drummer,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes vocals, but mostly drummer. Good time.
That was really just such a mid 2000s time.
Yeah, yeah, it was like a moment.
Yeah. It got quickly oversaturated, but it was so fun. I had a lot of fun. Where am I hurt? Reality is broken. My games make us. Oh. Somebody was telling me about this book, and I recognize the cover, and I don't remember who it was or in what context, but okay.
So this is like the old school cover, and they just
Yeah.
also done a second edition with that.
Interesting.
She
Okay.
has a TED Talk, which very
Oh, maybe.
well sums it up.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
think it's like a 10-minute TED Talk or something like that.
Did you set your timer? You did, right?
I did.
Okay,
So we
good.
have 3 until our 2-minute warning.
Yeah.
And I double checked with her because I forgot. But like the next group don't come in until 12:30, so like
Oh,
we can break up at noon. But it's not
Yeah.
like anybody's gonna be rushing the stage to try to get
Oh,
stuff.
man.
So
The changeovers, the quick changeovers.
yeah, MAGFest does it right. Like 30 minutes breathing room. Definitely done
I
that.
did a
for-
talk at this one point. Oh, so I'm probably not gonna go back there. Like, oh, will you come back? I'm like, ugh. I gave a talk at this podcast. What was it called? It was a conference. Afros and Audios. I don't know. It was. They'd done a bunch of virtual events, but it was their first in-person event, I think. Which expect hiccups when it's your first.
Manage the expectations, yeah.
It was in Baltimore, and like I expected, I was the only person who went out of that room. And so I was like, you expected people come to you, they want to talk about what you just talked about. We were not talking for even 5 minutes, and like this guy comes and yells at us and says, like, you need to go, you're expected upstairs. It was so rude. It was so rude. And so like I did this talk, and I really feel like I got nothing out of it because I didn't get to talk to anybody afterwards. Like nobody followed me, because that's usually when you do the exchange. Like that's my favorite part,
Yeah.
actually. It was not good. So I'm glad we get the whole 30 minutes. That's not that we're gonna need it, but
No, it's good. I've definitely had panels where like, okay, this is great, but we need to move out to the hallway now.
yeah.
That was the last con I spoke at was Awesome Con, and we did a panel on diving into the Little Mermaid, talking about. It was right after the Little Mermaid got re-released, it was like talking about the depiction of race and things like that. Like, I was the only white person, so I just want to say that. So it was a really good panel, but like they had really tight changes, and so like the person before us ran over, and we were like, we need to get up, like we need the stage to set up.
That's always rough.
Yeah. Especially with like the staffer was like, you're over, you're really over. And yeah. It worked out.
Yeah,
We didn't do that to the next people.
even though you lost time.
Even though we lost time.
Wow.
We moved it out of the hallway. It's good.
It's so difficult when people go over. Like I get it, especially when the energy is good and the conversation's really flowing, but you
Or when you
gotta.
have like a really large panel.
Yeah.
and so, like,
It is hard,
Yeah.
but man, if you go over really,
have been the person to go over, and I have been the person to be on the receiving end. You try your best, but yeah.
There's been a couple times where like people have gone over and like I wait, and then I finally come up and stand right here, and they're like, "Oh, you're here." I'm like, "Yeah." I just didn't want to be rude. But it's different cultural ideas and
Yeah.
understandings. Like common sense is not always common, right?
Yeah, and also I think it happens a lot more with like newer panelists, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
they don't understand. It's like, no, we gotta.
I love the energy, but we gotta get
Fascinating
energy
panel.
also.
Okay, go.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Exactly. 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
So in about 2 minutes,
2 more minutes.
2 more minutes, we're gonna reconvene and kind of share. If you're comfortable with sharing. If you're not comfortable with sharing, that's fine. But in about 2 minutes, we'll come back together and wrap up and share and wrap up.
Do you think they understood that we're gonna wrap up?
Yes,
In about 2 minutes?
I think so. Enough.
I think the coffee's kind of gone, and now it's just adrenaline.
Oh, my friend was responding to this. Oopsies.
We were talking about stickers. I was thinking about the like I voted stickers. As kind of like
But like, it could be interesting to make little.
visible cueing. Like I did this. I'm part of this group.
Mm-hmm,
I don't know. My brain's then going to like. Do you remember back whenever people were doing the safety pin thing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I still see people wearing safety pins. I'm like,
Is that a thing? Yeah, I do too. I'm like, do you mean, or is it just fashion?
are you saving it for later?
My just in case. Oh, no. This isn't a safe space. This is my just in case pin. Safety
You
pin.
eat too much for lunch. Like, I mean, but that's also like you showing your backpack with all your pins on it. Like, and that I have a deviant art satchel.
No, look at this. I love this backpack. And it was last night. I was like, this backpack I would use, but I don't want to use it. And I was like, well, you know what?
That was the thing I forgot to tell you. There's no bag check here. I meant to tell you there wasn't a bag check. Like, as in, no, they don't search your bags at this
Yeah,
time.
they did not. They did not search my
I
bag.
guess that's like
Which
more
seems-
the bigger cities. Like, I don't know. No, I've had my bag checked at Otakon here. So,
So I was like, oh, okay, so I'm just very good. Okay. But I guess it makes sense. They don't have like even if they did at registry, like it would just be hard. There's too many people and too many like points of like egress. Like,
yeah. I mean, the one in the convention center just north of Chinatown is structured for it, sort of. But this one's definitely not. It's too blended with downtown. Okay, we should.
Okay, like 30 seconds.
what's the next side? Here we go. Goodness gracious. Okay, great, bring it back.
Do it.
All right, y'all, we're gonna bring it back to the center. We have about 7 minutes left, so we wanted to do some sharing, see what y'all came up with, if you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Was there something that was specific? I mean, we've got those questions, but I also wanted to be like, was this exercise useful? Did you enjoy it? Like, what's your general impression of kind of working through the worksheet? Good, bad, boring, hated it, gonna burn it when I get home?
Wow. Go ahead.
Go ahead, brown hat.
I at least working in a group, I think just like talking about our ideas
Mhm.
is the most helpful, and like I don't think we use the worksheet a lot. But
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think it's like a helpful tool to have, especially if you plan on like going out and actually executing this idea that you're
Mhm.
talking about. I like to like scrap up my trash, so I won't burn it. I'll scrap up it, if that makes you feel better.
Oh my gosh, it can become a fanzine.
Oh, fun.
It's gonna go be repurposed.
And then like the two things we were talking about were really interesting. I know we were talking about like getting youth to work as poll workers and like ways to like achieve that and like go about like how do you connect with those youth.
Mhm.
And then like I'm really interested, like I don't think the two-party system works, but I can't just dismantle it. And so like what steps could I take that are helpful?
Mhm.
I kind of settled on like educating people about what the two-party system is, and then also what a third-party vote does. Like what's the use and distance of a third-party vote. So.
Yeah.
Very
I mean,
cool.
and there's working models out there, right?
In other countries, yeah.
Most of the other developed countries. Other feedback? Okay, so what ideas for actions came out of your group? Were there any kind of specific actions that you guys came up with that you feel comfortable sharing? Yes.
Go ahead.
Ours was like making calls to lawmakers.
Nice.
Like organizing
Mhm.
meetings and stuff to like make our voices heard kind of thing.
Mhm.
So like organizing people to do that.
Did you have any ideas about like potential like fandoms or pop culture you could maybe tie it to?
Yeah, ours was Stardew Valley. So
Nice.
like
Yes.
adding like corporate interests.
Love it.
So having the smaller voices heard versus corporate lobbies.
Yes.
So that's where we went with that.
I love that. Go ahead.
It's not for my example, but it's just like for the poll worker example, one of the ideas is just like making just starting with fan art and just making fan art of like your favorite character being a poll worker or working at the polls. And it's just like putting that on Instagram or potentially making a sticker that says I vote.
Mhm.
And it's the character that says I voted. That can be like community funded and then disseminated to those people so then they can wear that sticker instead of just the plain one and stuff like that and makes it cuter. So
That's a super fun idea, and I want a sticker.
There was a while there, like about several years ago, we'll say several, where I was like, I really want to commission a piece of art of like all my favorite characters with the "This is what a feminist looks like" T-shirt on of each of them. But yeah, no, I love the fan art angle. That's great.
Were there any parts you got stuck on, or are there any obstacles that seemed to be in your way, if y'all got that far?
How was the connection between, so like we all have ideas about like problems and things that we want to fix. How hard was it to like find connections with your fandoms? Did you guys find success with like being like, oh, this ties in with that very easily, or did you struggle with that element? A little bit of struggle, a little bit of a stretch.
I feel like with the poll idea we were talking about, a lot of it was like there weren't any particular like fandoms or characters that were coming to mind.
Mhm.
It was like it could be fun to make art from multiple different things,
Mhm.
like just catch people's attention online or to get them to vote or try to work at the polls.
Mm-hmm.
But then we were also talking about like if you're trying to find youth to like recruit to work at the polls, like how do you find them? And like we were talking about like trying to go to like nerdy clubs at a community college and like talking to them. And so like just having the group you approach the fandom.
Mhm.
And then you talk about your thing and maybe it's not related to fandom, but you're like that would become a face of that campaign, but I hadn't like settled on one.
Okay, cool. I mean, there's definitely time, but it seems like you made a lot of headway. I do like the idea of like just in general, like fandom at the polls in your local community. Before we give you your final steps and level up to level 2, was there any other general questions? Speak now. I'm just kidding. Okay, so we're going to move on to level 2 and wrap up. Basically, the next level, this is just an excerpt of our Save Our Progress campaign where we train a community of video game nerds to, I said nerds, the whole time I was like fans, not nerds, but we're all nerds, it's fine, to organize their own voting actions. We're planning to organize trainings that guide you through the entire process. So we have an email list if you would like. You can add your email up here. I meant to pass it around while we were doing the worksheet, but it's fine. You can put your name and email up here, or there is a QR code. We'll get it to you in the next coming slides to keep up with the news and stuff about Save Our Progress. And we would love, if you find us on socials or wherever, we would love to hear your progress if you make any more progress. So you can connect with our campaigns director, or you can just join our email list through that QR code or put your name down here. We won't spam you. We will just send you fun updates.
And we don't sell our mailing list or anything like that.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
We are good people. We're also at fandomforward.org on the internet, and you can find all our socials and stuff from that website.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything else?
You have now been leveled up. Your XP has increased by 100.
Yay!
Thank you so much for coming out at 10 a.m. on a Saturday.
Friday. It's Friday.
It's Saturday in my brain because I'm not at work today. I've been struggling all week. But yes, have a great con. Thank you so much.
Yes.